All right, that was Senator Rand Paul. He plans on introducing a constitutional amendment that Congress can no longer write themselves out of laws using loopholes. Let's debate that. Kirsten Powers is a columnist for the Daily Beast and a Fox News contributor. Ben Shapiro is a syndicated columnist and editor-at-large of Breitbart News. Welcome to both of you. Let me just read you the language that Rand Paul is suggesting. Congress shall make no law applicable to a citizen of the United States that is not equally applicable to Congress. Kirsten, who can argue with that?
Well, it's kind of sad that we would need to pass a law that says that, right? It seems sort of obvious. And so, you know, I'm of mixed feelings of this. On the one hand, it seems like, yeah, why not? This should be the way that it is. On the other hand, is this really the biggest problem, or even a big problem that we face in this country? And I know that the primary example I think he's using is the Affordable Care Act, and Republicans have kind of exaggerated what's gone on there in terms of the so-called congressional exemption. It's not much of an exemption. They've just basically are going to be in the exchanges, and they're going to get the subsidies to offset what they're losing from moving out of their old health insurance.
Exactly. So let's talk about that, Ben, because that was the genesis, I believe, of what Rand Paul is suggesting, which is that Congress will be forced to join Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, starting January 1st. However, they will continue to receive, as Kirsten just said, the federal subsidies. Not all Americans will be able to receive federal subsidies. It depends on your paycheck. Should Congress?
Of course not. I mean, Congress is very friendly to itself, which is no great shock here. The fact is that Congress has exempted itself from many a law in the past, including insider trading laws. It shouldn't be the case that you go to Congress and then when you leave, you're significantly richer than when you came to Congress in the first place. It's what creates that trust gap. But, I mean, as far as a constitutional amendment, I was under the impression that the 14th Amendment provides equal protection under the laws, so I'm surprised that we feel we need a separate constitutional amendment to enforce what's already in the Constitution.
Kirsten, you know, some people have made a big deal that the president and his family and his cabinet secretaries and their families will not have to join the Affordable Care Act. Should they have to?
I guess, you know, it's one of those things that it's a little complicated to get back to how that actually happened. The fact that Congress is under the, you know, going into the exchanges and the executive branch isn't, has to do with just sort of congressional maneuvering that went on. I can't remember which Republican initially proposed it as kind of almost like a poison pill, and then Democrats decided that they liked it, and that's how it sort of ended up in the bill. And so it was, you know, the thing about it is that the exchanges aren't really set up for major employers, right? They're for individuals and for small businesses, and so the federal government is a major employer, and so it doesn't make sense to put them in it because that's not what they're for. Right. And so I guess if you're, you know, but I think if you're a person who doesn't like Obamacare, you're thinking, well, this is terrible, we should make them be in it. But I'm not sure that that was the purpose of Obamacare in the first place.
Sure, but it also just has exactly what we're talking about, that whiff of special treatment, that everybody is subject to things.
Not really.
I mean, it's just what Ben raised. The insider trading loophole, all of the loopholes that Congress gets. This feels like another loophole that, once again, they've managed to skirt something that other Americans can't.
But I would say it's not a loophole in this situation just because it wouldn't apply to Microsoft, for example. It wouldn't apply to any major employer. The U.S. government employs so many people that this is just how Obamacare is structured. And the fact that Congress got put in it is sort of an unusual thing. It wouldn't have normally been
Okay, Ben, are you cool with that?
I'm not cool with it. I mean, the fact is that David Vitter put forward an amendment that would have forced all of these Obamacare exemptions or subsidies to go away, and then Congress objected to it and didn't put it through. And this is what we're constantly seeing from a Congress that is mostly interested in enriching itself. I mean, as Peter Schweitzer has pointed out in his new book, Extortion, the fact is that Congress members are constantly using these loopholes in order to do more for themselves than they've done for the American people. And that's why you're seeing this huge gap in public opinion. We hate Congress, and there's a reason we hate Congress.
And while the president pushes his message, a political column in Rolling Stone magazine is suggesting America's millennial generation should push for, quote, a fair society, instead of the, quote, economic hellhole our parents have handed us. Joining us now, a millennial himself, Ben Shapiro. He's host of the brand new Ben Shapiro Show on KTTH that premiered today. And we should mention that we reached out to the author of the Rolling Stone piece. He was unavailable to us tonight, but we're going to discuss his thoughts. Ben, thanks for being here. And so the author of this piece has some very interesting insights. He's an Occupy Wall Street guy for millennials like you. He thinks, among other things, that there should be guaranteed work in this country for everyone. He thinks that everything should be owned by everyone. We need a sovereign wealth fund that is basically just a big investment fund that buys up from the private sector and then pays out to the rest of America. He wants a public bank in every state. And here's my favorite one. He wants Social Security for everybody. And this is a quote. As much as unemployment blows, so do jobs. What if people didn't have to work to survive? Is this a joke?
No, I mean, it isn't. This is actually how a lot of millennials think, and this is how the Occupy Wall Street movement thinks. This is a group of people who graduated with degrees in lesbian dance theory and then were surprised when they didn't get a six-figure paycheck out of college. I mean, this is, unfortunately, they were getting a paycheck consummate with their education level. The problem is that if you have to be productive in a capitalist society in order to earn anything. And this is, unfortunately, a lazy generation, a generation that expects things, and ignorant and communist is no way to go through life.
Fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life, son.
I was on a maternity leave when that story broke, but was there, in fact, is there a degree in lesbian dancing?
I know that they actually do have classes in
so
in
classes,
various
but you can't major in it.
Like
Okay.
That.
Here's what I want to ask you.
Unfortunately.
Because he goes on to talk about, and this is just one of the quotes that he talks about, and this is part of his, we need to guarantee work for everyone. And he talks about how, listen, we would run a job guarantee through perhaps the non-profit sector. Imagine a world where people could contribute the skills that inspire them, like painting murals, rather than whatever stupid tasks bosses need done. Doesn't it sound great? So who is going to pay in this utopian world that this millennial, and by the way, this article was specifically endorsed by Rolling Stone in its own words, who is going to be paying for these millennials to paint their murals?
Oh, nobody. The unicorns. The unicorns will. Or the children that the millennials will never have because we're never going to get married and we're never going to have kids. I mean, this is the whole thing. Passing the buck to the next generation that doesn't exist yet. And John Maynard Keynes was fond of saying that in the long run we're all dead. This is that philosophy taken to the extreme. In the short run we're all dead, so we might as well all paint murals. Who's going to clean the toilets? I mean, who's going to do the actual work that needs to be done in this country? Maybe this is why so many folks want open borders.
He doesn't think anybody should have to work at all. He thinks the government should give paychecks out just to you sitting on your couch because you exist. Who is going to generate the taxes that's going to pay for those people on their couches?
So y'all keep going to work, making all that money because your taxes is helping me and my chillins. All right, over and out. Thank you. I love America.
Well, this is the big problem with communism and socialism. It is inherently the most selfish philosophy on planet Earth. It's the idea that because I'm breathing, I deserve something. Capitalism is forced altruism. I starve unless I provide something to you that you find useful. And this is why, honestly, I think that what's shocking is not that this guy wrote this piece, but that this is a sentiment that's felt by so many people in the aftermath of an entire century in which these ideas were tried and they failed.
That's one, because with all due respect to the article of peace, not many people care what this kid from Occupy Wall Street thinks and has written in Rolling Stone. But we are hearing that the president is about to make income inequality the centerpiece of his next few years in office. And we heard it from the mayor of New York. I mean, this is where the Democrats are going. And the question is, are they going to go as far left as this guy went? Maybe not quite that far, but is this the way people on the left are thinking? And here's one example of one of the tweets the Rolling Stone guy sent out today. I don't want the 1% dead, just dispossessed. Tell you what, each family can keep one mansion and one luxury car, but the rest is forfeit. I mean, even the president came out one time and said, I do think at some point you've made enough money. I mean, the mindset of you have enough, and I'll tell you when you've reached that point.
I mean, I do think at a certain point you've made enough money.
Well, this is actually a vile and despicable philosophy. It really is. And I think that the conservatives in this country need to start actually making the moral case for capitalism. This is a great failure on our part. The truth is that by the end of the 20th century, capitalism had largely won across the globe. And now it's beginning to lose again because capitalism was never made a moral issue. It was always turned into a practical issue. Well, the fact is that too many people see what's happened in America as a failure of capitalism rather than as a failure of government. And so a lot of folks are turning back to the old discredited idea that didn't just lead to an enormous amounts of poverty across the globe, but it led to the deaths of hundreds of millions of people if you take this to its extreme.
It's interesting, Ben. Maybe we'll be joined by this Rolling Stone guy another time and see what he has to say about it, but we'll look forward to that. Thanks, Ben.